Welcome into Bengals Breakdown. I am Stone Shields. Thanks so much for joining us for today's show. We're going to break down a trade proposal that Bleacher Report brought to the table. Usually they kind of have some trade proposals that are kind of nonsense or what have you, but there might be some sense in this particular one that they brought up. Also, we're going to take a look at Thursday's injury report, see where everybody stands in terms of if they were limited in practice, if they were full in practice, or if they flat out simply did not practice. That's what's on tap today. But first, share today's video for us on social media. The bosses said we got to get our shares numbers up. So help us out. Share that video on social media, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, whatever you got to do. Share it for us right now. It would be greatly appreciated. All right, so Bleacher Report brought up that the Bengals could potentially trade for a defensive end. They had their NFL trade block big board that they released entering week 2, and they paired a specific defensive end with the Cincinnati Bengals. Now, I will just start out by saying the Bengals typically don't do this kind of stuff, right? But I do think perhaps they might, change how they operate. I don't necessarily think that, but it could be a good idea for them to change how they operate because they have so much talent on their team, but they might be just missing some guys at one key spot. And that spot is the defensive line, the defensive end more specifically. Bleacher Report brought up trading for Azeez Ojulari of the New York Giants. Look, I don't hate this, right? Ojulari was a guy that got picked in the second round by New York. He went to Georgia. He's played in some big-time football games, but his career hasn't really panned out to this point, right? He doesn't really get out there much, but he's a guy that was, a highly touted prospect that, you could take a flyer on depending on what exactly you would have to give up in a trade situation. So we'll dive into what exactly Bleacher Report had to say in regards to this in a bit. But first, let's get to the pinned comment of today's video. Should Cincinnati trade for Azeez Ojulari? Type Y for yes or N for no. I know there's a lot of you guys out there that think the Bengals need a lot of help at that defensive line room edge specifically, especially with the injury that took place with Cam Sample, among some other guys that are banged up there as well. So sound off for us in the comment section. Should Cincinnati trade for Azeez Ojulari? All right, here is what Bleacher Report said. We'll get right into it. They said, we're only one game into the year, but it sure feels like New York's 2022 playoff campaign was more of a fluke than last season's 6-11 run. There's another factor to consider in the case of pass rusher Azeez Ojulari. The 2021 second-round pick has simply fallen out of the game plan. Ojulari had 8 sacks as a rookie and another 5.5 sacks in 2022, and he recorded 56 quarterback pressures in 35 games over the last 3 seasons. However, Ojulari also landed on IR in each of the past 2 seasons and did not see a prominent role in Week 1. He recorded 1 tackle while playing a mere 24 defensive snaps. So it'll be interesting to see if his role kind of evolves at all in New York over the next couple of weeks. But I do think Bleacher Report brings up a lot of good points there. I mean, New York is a team that, they look like they're in a really tough spot. They don't look like they're necessarily going to be out there competing. And Ojulari is a guy that you could potentially, like I said earlier in the show, take a flyer on if you're looking to add from the outside. This, of course, is what the Bengals are working with currently. Trey Hendrickson does an outstanding job, but he needs some help. Look, we all love Sam Hubbard. There's absolutely no doubt about that. But from a pass rush perspective, he hasn't really made any noise for Cincinnati. Interested to see what Cedric Johnson could do potentially going forward. He was not dressed for the Bengals Week 1 game, so I thought that was kind of interesting that he wasn't out there. And, of course, Myles Murphy will be back at some point. So, again, it would be very shocking if the Bengals were to do something like this. It would be totally out of character, but it's certainly a position that they need to get better at. Let's take a look at this tweet here from Robert Mays, who hosts a football podcast. He said the Bengals finished with the second best pressure rate in the league on Sunday, per True Media, but it was a lot of this. Hendrickson wins, no one else does, and they can't get home. That plus a couple unblocked Logan Wilson pressures make the numbers look the way they do. I did think it was interesting that the numbers did look like that, and it always felt like in that game Sunday that Trey Hendrickson was so close. He was always making noise, but ultimately he was never able to get home. And in order for that to happen, he's going to need some help from his buddies. We'll see if anybody can step up this week in Kansas City. We'll continue with our show, get into the Bengals injury report here in a moment. But first, I want to give a shout out to our friends over at GameTime, because today's show is presented by GameTime. GameTime is a new feature called GameTime Picks that makes getting tickets to see your favorite teams play live even easier. GameTime Picks filters out the fluff to show you only incredible deals on great seats, so you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets. GameTime Picks is the easiest way to find and buy tickets to live events. Bengals versus Chiefs is the GameTime game of the week. You can get tickets for this game on GameTime. They have the best deals possible. You want to do a little road trip to Kansas City, Missouri. I've done it before. 2 AFC championships. Well, I guess 3 ago that the Bengals won. I was there at Arrowhead Stadium. It was absolutely incredible. Where did we get our tickets? GameTime, of course. So download the GameTime app, create an account, and use code ChatSports for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code CHATSPORTS for $20 off. Download GameTime today. What time is it? It's game time. Let's take a look here at the Bengals injury report from Thursday. Joe Burrow's name still pops up on there, but he's still full. So it's enough to be, enough for us to talk about, for people all over the media to talk about. But Joe Burrow has said he is completely fine, and hopefully he can push that ball down the football field a little bit this weekend at Arrowhead Stadium. T. Higgins, again, did not practice. We'll get, more of a word on him and his status going forward. As the week continues to progress, I become more and more of the belief that he's not going to be out there for Cincinnati against Kansas City. Obviously, that is a big loss. T. Higgins is their number 2 guy. That would be number 1 on a lot of teams in the NFL. Hasn't been able to stay healthy, and that's just very, very unfortunate for him and for the team and for us as fans as well. B.J. Hill, he was full at practice for Cincinnati. And keep in mind, on Wednesday, he was limited. So this is a good sign that he is kind of getting up to speed a little bit more, and he was a full go, had that knee issue, banged it up during the game, but that's good. He is full, and I 100% expect him to be out there for Cincinnati in Kansas City. Tanner Hudson was limited in practice yesterday for the Bengals, and he's a guy, of course, Bengals have him at that tight end spot, and he had, the very costly fumble that I kind of feel like if that didn't happen, the Bengals win that football game. But, things happen, but we'll see if Tanner Hudson is ready to go, which leads us to another opportunity for you guys to get involved with our show here on Bengals Breakdown. I've been hard on Tanner Hudson a lot. This was even before the fumble. I suggested that the Bengals part ways with him. I thought he was a potential cut candidate. I would have just went with McLaughlin and gotten rid of Hudson personally. But do you want to see Tanner Hudson play? Type A for yes, B for no. Do you want to see him get a little redemption and kind of, bounce back after that fumble, or are you done with him and ready to move on as well? Sound off for us in the comments of today's show. Chris Jenkins also did not practice again, dealing with that thumb injury. He's got like a massive, brace on that thumb, so it seems like it's something that's kind of serious. I do not expect him to play at all. Very unfortunate, of course, because he's a second-round pick for the Bengals, and he plays the position that they need the most help in, that interior defensive line. So unfortunate, but I would be shocked if Chris Jenkins played for Cincinnati this weekend. We'll see when he makes that return. Logan Wilson was the guy that kind of popped up on Wednesday. It was a surprise to a lot of people, myself included, with that knee. He did not practice on Wednesday, but on Thursday he did practice but was limited. I think that's a good sign that he was back out there on the football field. He remains optimistic in talking with the media that he is completely fine and ready to go. So I'm sure that one day off, just a precautionary thing. He's a proven player. He was banged up. They gave him the day off. And they're just, being careful with him, but fully expect him to play against Kansas City, and the Bengals need him to play and need him to play well. Lastly, Amarius Mims was limited. He's been practicing for a while and has been limited for a while. So curious to find out when this is going to ramp up. Really want to see him out there in action at some point for Cincinnati. Thought he, had an incredible training camp. The preseason snaps that we saw out of him, that first preseason game against the Bucs, were really impressive. But he's a guy that, I'm really excited for. But obviously haven't seen him yet. Hopefully that changes at some point. When do you guys think we will see Amarius Mims play? I really don't know, to be honest with you. It's kind of a interesting situation as he continues to be limited, as practice goes on. So we'll see if that changes at all. Again, I think based on where they're at right now, I'd be surprised if they kind of threw him to the Wolves, especially against a team like Kansas City. Probably not going to be out there for Cincinnati. But again, sound off for us. When do you guys think we will see Amarius Mims play? And of course, hit that sub button if you have not done so already. YouTube.com/Bengals TV. We will have our second regular season watch party 1 hour before the game, 3:25 p.m. Eastern time. So don't miss out on that. Hit that sub button, YouTube.com/Bengals TV.